You wouldn't want your parents finding out about this sham marriage, would you? My ex-wife's best friend was threatening me with the one thing I cared about most. I thought she was after money, but instead, she drugged me. When I tried to fight back, she just chuckled in my ear. How do you know if you'll like it if you don't even try? Afterward, as I glared at her, humiliated, she brought me a bowl of soup with a look of pure satisfaction. Here, darling, get your strength back. After I drank it, she smiled, a twisted, pathological grin. I put a heart-binding charm in it. From now on, you'll never be able to leave me. I scoffed, telling her she'd read too many fantasy novels. The next second, the mere thought of escaping sent an invisible hand clamping around my heart, the pain so intense it brought me to my knees. She whispered in my ear, "That's the charm. The more you want to leave me, the more your heart will hurt. Oh, and by the way, if we go too long without being intimate, the pain will be unbearable." Outside the county clerk's office, even the summer breeze felt hot with the finality of a breakup. The exhaust from Victoria Sterling's Maserati washed over my face, but I didn't care. I was staring at the alert from my banking app. A wire transfer for $750,000. Exactly. 3 years of contract marriage had bought me a lifetime of financial freedom. As far as I was concerned, it was a hell of a deal. I couldn't help but get lost in thought, reflecting on my bizarre career path. My name is Leo Vance, and I'm a professional stand-in. Good-looking, smooth-talking, a quick study, I was born for this line of work. In middle school, my friend's bad boy boyfriend went to juvie. She was a wreck. For $700, I helped her get through that rough patch. In high school, the campus heiress's first love transferred to a school abroad, leaving her in tears every day. I stepped in, taking her to dinners and movies, and successfully turned her frown upside down, pocketing a cool $14,000 in emotional damages for my trouble. In college, a nerdy girl in the cosplay club got dumped by her childhood sweetheart and was talking about ending it all. I suited up in whatever anime character costume she wanted and hit the convention circuit with her. When we graduated, she gave me a car. My professional ethics are the gold standard. If a client pays, I'll do anything, as long as it doesn't cross my moral lines. The second the client's real partner returns, I take my money and disappear. No attachments, no drama. That's why my reviews were stellar, my reputation impeccable. 3 years ago, right after graduation, I was stressing about finding a job when the opportunity of a lifetime fell into my lap. The CEO of Sterling Innovations, Victoria Sterling, needed a contract husband to get her family off her back about getting married. The salary, $20,000 a month, on a 3-year contract. I signed without blinking, and we were at the courthouse that same day. Now, 3 years were up, the divorce was final, and I was finally free to live the life I'd always dreamed of, doing absolutely nothing. I took an Uber to the apartment I'd already rented. It wasn't huge, but it was more than enough for one person. I didn't buy a place because, well, I'm greedy. What if that Ice Queen Victoria decided she wanted to renew our contract? I wasn't about to turn down another payday. For the next few days, I let myself go completely wild. Day 1, I went to the most exclusive spa in the city and dropped $1,000 on a massage package. 2 masseuses worked me over until I was floating. Day 2, I hit a karaoke club and booked a private suite with 8 hostesses, all legs and black stockings. I must have dropped $10,000 on tips alone that night. Day 3, I went to an upscale billiards lounge and hired for beautiful instructors to give me private lessons. Surrounded by perfume and soft curves, I felt like an emperor. It was a blur of indulgence. I was so blissed out, I barely remember my own name when my phone buzzed. It was Victoria's best friend, Selena Croft. Want to get dinner? I frowned and typed back 2 words. Can't make it. I wanted nothing more to do with their world. All I wanted was to be left alone to enjoy my early retirement. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message and a photo. The picture was of my parents standing with Victoria, all of them beaming. "Leo, darling, you wouldn't want your parents finding out about your little sham marriage with Victoria, would you?" The blood in my veins turned to ice. The phone slipped from my hand, the screen shattering on the floor. In an instant, I had plummeted from the clouds of euphoria straight into a freezing hell. Gritting my teeth, I picked up the phone and replied with a single word. "Fine." Half an hour later, I walked into the private dining room. Selena had already ordered a table full of food and was watching me with a placid smile. The smile of a spider that had just finished spinning its web. I pulled out a chair and sat down, too annoyed for pleasantries. "How did you know?" Selena didn't answer. She just elegantly lifted a bottle of red wine and poured me a glass. The crimson liquid swirled, dark as blood. "It's a beautiful day. Have a drink. I brought this from home." She was completely in control, and the unspoken pressure was starting to get to me. I didn't say anything, and she didn't seem to be in a hurry. The tension hung in the air. I finally picked up my chopsticks, pretending to eat, trying to find an opening to pry some information out of her. "This is good wine," I said after taking a sip. It was in fact incredibly smooth. She smiled. "If you like it, have some more." I tried to steer the conversation, probing for a weakness, but she was a fortress. After a few glasses, my head started to feel fuzzy, and the room began to blur. Not good. I shot to my feet, intending to leave, but my body was limp, devoid of strength. My last conscious thought was, I was careless. This woman is 100 times more dangerous than Victoria. When I woke up again, I was in an unfamiliar room. A magnificent crystal chandelier hung above me, and the bed beneath me was impossibly soft. A familiar scent hung in the air, Selena's perfume. My body was heavy, exhausted. I couldn't move. I turned my head and saw her. She was lying on her side, next to me, propped up on one elbow, watching me with a playful, wicked smile. "The dose I gave you was a little strong," she said, her voice lazy and dangerous. "You probably won't be getting out of bed for a while." "Good. That gives us time to take care of some business." With that, she moved over me. I struggled with all my might, managing to force out a few words. "Don't do this. You can't force this." She leaned down, her warm breath caressing my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. "How do you know if you'll like it if you don't even try?" What followed was a violation. My resistance was laughably futile against her overwhelming strength. I don't know how much time passed. The effects of the drug slowly faded, and some strength returned to my limbs. But I didn't want to move. Every breath was a sharp reminder of the ache in my lower back. Humiliation and rage gnawed at me like venomous snakes. I looked at the damning crimson stain on the sheets, then at Selena, who looked utterly content beside me. My voice was a raw rasp. "Why would you do this?" She met my gaze without flinching, her answer casual and matter-of-fact. "You don't need a reason to like someone. But if you need one, let's call it love at first sight. Before, you were my best friend husband, so my hand were tied. Now that you're single, well, I had to get a little creative." She got up and dressed. After her frenzy, her movements were slightly stiff. By the time I managed to drag myself out of bed, she had a pot of soup waiting on the dining room table. I was starving and wasn't about to ask questions. I picked up a bowl and was about to drink it. "Wait," she said, stopping me just in time. I looked at her, confused. She pointed to the other bowl, her tone leaving no room for argument. "That one's mine. This one's yours." I'm a bit of a germaphobe. I didn't think much of it. A starving man doesn't quibble over details. I grabbed my designated bowl and drank it down in one go. The hot liquid warmed my stomach instantly. But a second later, a strange chill spread from my esophagus, a cold snake slithering through my veins straight for my heart. My heart seized as if gripped by an invisible fist. I couldn't help but comment, "This soup is something else." Selena watched me and smiled. It was a sick, unsettling smile that made my blood run cold. "Something else, isn't it? Feels like your heart just turned to ice." A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. A terrible premonition washed over me. "What is this? How do you know that?" Her smile widened, now laced with a cruel delight. "Because I put something in it. A charm I've been working on for a year. A heart-binding charm, to be exact. From now on, you'll never be able to leave me." I stared at her for a second, then burst out laughing. "You've been reading too many fantasy novels. Who even believes in that stuff anymore? Besides, isn't it usually the guy who puts a spell on a girl?" She tilted her head, her expression a disturbing mix of innocence and insanity. "Why can't a girl put a spell on a guy? My grandmother taught me. She's pure-blooded Appalachian folk. Old magic. Don't believe me?" She leaned closer, her beautiful eyes glittering with excitement. "Go on. Think about it right now. In your head, with all the hate you can muster, think about how much you despise me, how disgusted you are, how badly you want to get away from me." Looking at her pathological expression, I genuinely felt a prickle of fear. I closed my eyes and thought, I hate Selena Croft. She's a psycho. I need to get away from her, as far as possible. The thought had barely formed when a violent, crushing pain erupted in my chest. It felt like someone was sawing at my heart with a dull knife. I doubled over, a cold sweat instantly drenching my back. "Ah!" I cried out in agony. I stared, terrified, at the smiling woman before me. It's real. The charm is real." In that moment, I finally understood the terrifying abyss I had fallen into. There was no escape. I looked at her in despair, my voice trembling. "But what you'll have won't be the real me. My mind will be gone. I'll just be an empty shell." The smile on Selena's face only deepened. "Don't worry. This charm won't make you fall hopelessly in love with me overnight. The love it brings, it's the kind that grows over time. She spoke like an artist presenting her masterpiece, explaining the cruel rules of her creation. The farther away you are from me, the more your heart will hurt. The more you want to leave me, the more you'll suffer. And if we go too long without being intimate, you'll be in agony. She paused, her voice softening to a gentle murmur that was more terrifying than any shout. So, from now on, you'll be a good boy and stay by my side. As she spoke, she caressed my face, her eyes wild with a possessive obsession. It was worth spending 6 months brewing this thing. And if Victoria hadn't let it slip that your marriage was fake, I might have never gotten my chance. What? My mind reeled. So was Victoria. My supposedly foolproof plan had been an open book to these two all along. I was the fool, a puppet on their strings. Looking at the madwoman before me, I completely abandoned any thought of resistance. Any struggle would only bring more pain. I closed my eyes, feeling truly powerless for the first time in my life. All I could do was surrender to my fate. The next morning, Selena dragged me out of bed. She was radiant, practically glowing with energy, a stark contrast to my zombie-like state. Come on, darling. We're going to City Hall. I was a marionette on a string as she pulled me out the door. The charm inside me was a ticking time bomb. I didn't dare defy her in the slightest. At the clerk's office, the scene was familiar, the process identical. To make things even more awkward, the clerk processing our marriage license was the same woman who had handled my divorce from Victoria just a few days earlier. She looked up at me, her eyes widening in disbelief before settling into an expression of utter contempt and shock. Her lips silently formed a few words. This fast. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. My face burned with shame. I felt like someone had just stamped scumbag of the century on my forehead. But, to my dismay, the marriage license was processed without a hitch. When the crisp new certificate was placed in my hand, it felt heavier than a block of lead. Selena happily linked her arm through mine, purring in my ear in a sickeningly sweet voice. Now we're official, darling. Her words sent a chill down my spine. Before I could even process the shock of being trapped in another marriage, she was already whisking me off to her parents' house. Time to meet the family, she said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Selena's parents were so enthusiastic it was unnerving. Oh, you must be Leo. Come in, come in. Her mother took my hand, beaming. Her father clapped me on the shoulder with an, I like the cut of your jib. Look, they even teased Selena. I guess our little girl finally decided to settle down, and she brought home such a handsome husband without a word. The atmosphere was ostensibly warm and welcoming, but I felt like I was sitting on a bed of nails. During dinner, I noticed something odd. When Selena's father and grandfather looked at me, their eyes held a complex emotion. It wasn't the look of approval for a new son-in-law. It was a knowing deeply buried, sympathy, and understanding, the kind you only see from someone who's been through the same thing. The discovery planted a seed of suspicion in my mind. After dinner, I found an excuse to slip out to the backyard, where I saw Selena's grandmother tending to her flower garden. I summoned my courage and walked over, forcing a pleasant smile. Hello, ma'am. The grandmother turned, a kind smile on her face. Leo, dear, come sit. I try to be subtle. Grandma, Selena told me you're from the Appalachian Mountains. Is it true that things like charms and hexes really exist? Her smile didn't waver. Of course they do. How else do you think our Selena managed to bring you home? My heart sank. She knew. Of course she knew. Throwing caution to the wind, I decided to lay on the charm, a skill I had perfected in my former profession. Well, in that case, Grandma, could you please help me get rid of it? Having this thing inside me. It scares me. Selena's grandmother just shook her head, her resolve firm. I can't do that. If I did, my grandson-in-law might run away. No matter how much I begged or pleaded, she wouldn't budge. Just as I was about to give up, Selena's mother walked over and patted my shoulder, comforting me gently. Don't you worry, Leo. The heart fix won't kill you. You'll get used to it. I looked up and saw her husband and father-in-law standing behind her, nodding their heads frantically like a pair of bobblehead dolls. In that instant, it was like being struck by lightning. An absurd and terrifying thought hit me. This couldn't be a family tradition, could it? Is this how her father and grandfather ended up here too? After dinner, my new father-in-law and grandfather-in-law pulled me aside, using the excuse of showing me the study. Once the door was closed, my father-in-law sighed and patted my shoulder. Son, when in Rome, you just gotta roll with it. Grandpa nodded sagely, his expression screaming, I feel your pain. Our family is a branch of one of the old clans from the mountains, he explained. It's tradition for the women to marry the men into the family. My father-in-law picked up the thread, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. And this heart fix? Well, it's the ancestral secret to ensuring a stable and harmonious marriage. He pointed to himself, then to Grandpa. We were married the same way back in our day. My mouth fell open, but no words came out. It was too bizarre, too insane. Looking at my two fellow sufferers, my two predecessors, I felt a bewildering sense of camaraderie. I wasn't fighting this battle alone. I had just been inducted into the Brotherhood of the Bewitched. That night, back at my and Selena's new home, I was forced to sleep in the same bed with her. The moment I lay down, she wrapped herself around me like a cat, pressing her entire body against mine. Darling, do you really want to leave me that badly? Her voice was laced with a barely perceptible jealousy. You even ran to Grandma to tattle on me? My body went rigid. She knew everything. Grandma's the one who taught me everything I know about charms. Did you really think she would help you? She giggled in my ear, but in the next second, her eyes turned dangerous. It seems you haven't learned your lesson yet. I'm going to have to punish you properly. With that, she rolled on top of me, pinning me down and reasserting her dominance in the most direct way possible. A night of forced passion. My will to resist was once again ground down by the overwhelming sensory assault and the merciless pressure of the charm. When I woke up the next day, my entire body felt like it had been run over by a truck. I expected to see a mocking sneer on her face, but Selena was already up and busy in the kitchen. The table was set with a hot breakfast, oatmeal, bagels, and a few other small dishes. I struggled to sit up. Hearing the movement, she walked in with a glass of warm water. You're awake? Drink some water first. I made breakfast. Seeing me wince, she reached out and began to gently rub my lower back. Is it sore? I might have been a little rough last night. Her touch was gentle, her tone apologetic, a complete 180 from the demonic woman of the night before. This carrot-and-stick approach was throwing me for a loop. From that day on, she began a full-scale invasion of my life. She, who had such severe germophobia that she wouldn't even use her parents' silverware, would now casually steal my favorite barbecue ribs right out of my bowl. Then, she'd peel a shrimp she'd just been eating and hold it to my lips. Open up, darling, she'd command. I went from resisting to numbly complying to subconsciously opening my mouth to accept it. The transition was terrifyingly short. She also loved to parade around in various states of undress. Fresh out of the shower, she'd wander around in a towel that looked like it could fall off at any moment, water droplets still glistening on her pale skin. When I was deep into a video game, she'd pad over barefoot and start rubbing her long, slender leg against my arm, constantly testing my limits. I felt like a frog being slowly boiled alive, constantly teetering on the edge of surrender. Then one time, I came down with the flu. I was burning up, drifting in and out of consciousness. In a half-dreaming state, I felt someone constantly wiping me down with a cool cloth. It was her. She stayed up with me all night, bathing my skin with lukewarm water to bring the fever down, muttering anxiously to herself. Why can't you ever take care of yourself? How did it get so high? Her voice was filled with genuine worry and heartache. In that moment, a tiny, almost imperceptible crack appeared in the fortress around my heart. After I recovered, Selena had a sudden whim. Let's go for a night hike and watch the sunrise. I shot her a sideways glance and mocked her mercilessly. You? A professional homebody? You think you have the stamina for that? Don't expect me to carry you when you collapse halfway up. My taunt set her off immediately. Who are you looking down on? I'll have you know I can make it to the top. To prove her point, she actually dragged me into a month-long fitness regimen. Every morning at 6 sharp, she'd haul me out of bed for a run. On weekends, we'd go for 20-mile bike rides in the countryside. The grit and determination she showed genuinely impressed me. The day of the hike, I became her personal pack mule and walking stick. The tent, sleeping bags, food, water, all of it was crammed into my heavy backpack. The mountain trail was harder than we'd expected. She complained about being tired the whole way, breathing like an old steam engine, but she never stopped. She stubbornly matched my pace step for step. During a break, we sat on a stone step to refuel. She looked with disgust at the beef jerky and electrolyte water I offered her. I don't want this. I want a hot meal. She pointed to a small, brightly lit diner not far away and started whining. Darling, can we please go get some real food? I couldn't win against her, so I resignedly shouldered my pack and followed her inside. The prices on the menu were outrageous. A simple cheeseburger was $25. She ordered 2. When the burgers arrived, they smelled incredible. Watching her devour her food with such pure, unadulterated satisfaction, I found myself thinking that $50 maybe wasn't such a rip-off after all. The higher we climbed, the steeper the trail became, and the thinner the air. On the final stretch to the summit, a section the locals called Jacob's Ladder, she was running on fumes. Her legs were trembling, her face pale. She could barely stand. I watched her bite her lip, too stubborn to admit she was exhausted, and my heart finally softened. I held out my hand. Come on. She hesitated for a second, then placed her hand in mine. Half supporting, half carrying her, I helped her up the final, grueling steps to the peak. The close physical contact made my heart hammer in my chest. I couldn't tell if the feeling was from the altitude, the exertion, or from the restless charm inside me. At 5 in the morning, the horizon began to glow. As the first ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, the entire mountaintop was bathed in gold. Below us, a sea of clouds churned, and a halo of light shimmered in the air. The beauty of it was breathtaking. She leaned her head on my shoulder, both of us speechless. I took out my phone and recorded a short video. In it, we were holding up 2 cans of Budweiser we'd bought on the mountain, shouting at the camera, "King of the world." In that moment, we weren't a captor and her prisoner, bound by a dark charm. We were just a couple, genuinely in love. The descent was even harder than the climb. Near the bottom, she twisted her ankle. Seeing the pain on her face, I hesitated for only a fraction of a second before crouching down in front of her. Get on. She was surprisingly light on my back. I carried her down the stone steps, one careful step at a time. She whispered in my ear, her voice barely audible. Leo, thank you. The usual bossiness and insanity were gone, replaced by a softness I'd never heard before. Back home, I expertly pulled an ice pack from the freezer and pressed it against her swollen ankle. She, in turn, directed me around like a queen. Darling, I'm thirsty. Give me some water. Darling, hand me the remote. I want to watch TV. It hit me then that I didn't know when it had happened, but I had grown used to taking care of her, used to her presence, and even used to her calling me darling. Not long after the hike, Selena got restless again. Let's go on a trip, she said, shaking my arm, her eyes sparkling. I want to show you where I grew up. I want you to see the real Appalachian culture. And so, we were on the road again. In the old mountain town near her family's hollow, we rented traditional folk costumes. The silver ornaments jingled as we moved. Selena, however, looked at her reflection with a frown. The quality of these rental clothes is terrible. The stitching is so rough. It's nothing like the one my grandma made for me. I smiled and tried to comfort her. These are mass-produced for tourists. Of course, they can't compare to something handmade by your grandma. She immediately lifted her chin, preening. Exactly. When we get back, I'll have Grandma make you one too. We can have matching outfits. For lunch, we went to a local place famous for its insect buffet. Fried cicadas, roasted grubworms, deep-fried spiders. I felt my skin crawl just looking at the strange assortment on the plate. Selena, however, dug in with relish, each bite a satisfying crunch. Seeing me hesitate, she started to mock me. Leo, are you even a man? You're scared to eat this. This stuff is pure protein. It's a delicacy, and it's good for you. She picked up a bug and dangled it in front of my face. Look, I used to catch centipede with my bare hands when I was a kid. You think I'm scared of eating a dead one? An image of her playing with a centipede flashed in my mind, and I shuddered. But her challenge had pricked my pride. I grabbed the biggest fried spider on the plate, closed my eyes, and shoved it in my mouth. After a few chews, it was actually kind of nutty. I drank a soup with a goddamn magic charm in it. I retorted, still chewing. You think I'm afraid of a few little bugs? She stared at me for a moment, then burst into peals of laughter, doubling over. She then picked up a large, golden-brown roasted scorpion and held it to my lips. Here, darling. This is your reward. That evening, we tried the local shadow cap mushroom feast. Legend had it that if the mushrooms weren't cooked properly, eating them would make you see dancing sprites. You scared you'll get poisoned? Selena joked. What's there to be scared of? I said, trying to sound tough. Best case scenario, I'll see a crowd of beautiful women dancing around me. That would make this meal a bargain. At that, Selena immediately started fighting me for the mushrooms on the plate. You want to see beautiful women? Well, I want to be surrounded by handsome men. This plate is mine. You can't have any more. We bickered like 2 children, our laughter drawing glances from the other tables. The atmosphere was so sweet, it felt unreal. The last stop on our trip was Savannah. We rented an electric scooter and just drove along the coast, letting the wind blow through our hair. She suddenly grew quiet, resting her head on my shoulder. The wind whipped her long hair across my face, tickling me. Leo, she said softly, you don't seem to hate me as much anymore. I didn't answer, but for the first time, I didn't push her away. The charm of my heart sent a warm pulse through my chest, not the tearing pain I was used to. I looked out at the ocean, felt the warmth of her body next to mine, and for the first time, I didn't think about escaping. After the trip, I realized I had completely adapted to this life of being kept by Selena. She didn't have to work, and her greatest joy was trying out new recipes and finding creative ways to feed me. And I, in turn, had gone from being a passive recipient to an active participant. I would watch cheesy soap operas with her, and we'd fight over the remote. We would spend entire days on the couch playing video games, the loser having to do the dishes. We were like any other ordinary married couple, our life filled with the mundane, comforting details of domesticity. One day, she handed me a black Amex card. "Darling, your allowance." My first instinct was to refuse. It was a matter of professional pride. I only took money that was part of a contract. But she just gave me a look. "We're married. What's mine is yours." Her voice dropped. "Unless you're still thinking about leaving." That one sentence was a checkmate. I silently took the card. Our peaceful, sweet life was shattered by a sudden phone call. The caller ID read, "Victoria Sterling." I hesitated, then answered. Her voice on the other end was tired and hesitant. "Leo, how have you been?" Before I could reply, she continued, as if talking to herself. "I'm not doing well. After you left, the house just feels so cold. The housekeeper's cooking never tastes right. Even in meetings, I find myself thinking about how you used to remind me to eat on time." In the 3 years I had known her, this was the first time she had ever shown such vulnerability. Listening to her, I felt nothing but a vague sense of irritation. "We're divorced, Victoria," I said coldly. "I'm doing great. You don't need to worry about me." I was about to hang up. "Leo," she said urgently. I didn't give her a chance to finish. I ended the call. When I turned around, I saw Selena standing silently behind me. She must have been there the whole time. She didn't ask a thing, just looked at me. Then, she wrapped her arms around me from behind, burying her face in my back. I could feel her body trembling slightly, betraying her insecurity. On a strange impulse, I covered her hands, which were clasped around my waist, with my own. It was the first time I had ever voluntarily reciprocated her touch. I felt her hold me even tighter. That weekend, the doorbell rang. Thinking it was a food delivery, I shuffled to the door in my slippers and opened it. Standing there was Victoria Sterling. She was impeccably dressed in a sharp business suit, her makeup flawless. In her hand, she held a box of expensive tea. "I came to see Selena," she said, but her eyes were already scanning the apartment behind me. When her gaze landed on Selena, who was wearing a cute bunny print pajama set and casually handing me a slice of orange, she froze. The TV was paused on a movie we'd been watching last night. The coffee table was littered with snack wrappers. The cozy, chaotic scene was a world away from the sterile, immaculate home she remembered. Her eyes finally settled on her hands, on our matching, simple wedding bands. "You two are married." Her face went deathly pale, her voice trembling with disbelief. Selena proudly held up her hand, then snuggled into my arms like a kitten claiming its territory. "That's right, Vicky. We've been married for almost a year now. Sorry, I must have forgotten to tell you." Victoria's gaze shot to me, sharp as a knife. "What? Leo, you tell me. What?" Looking at her, at this complete loss of composure, I felt a chilling sense of calm. I pulled Selena closer, deliberately choosing the cruelest words, the ones that best fit the character she thought I was. "It's just business. Everyone has a price. Her offer was better than yours." Victoria swayed on her feet, her eyes instantly welling with tears. For the first time, she shed the armor of the powerful CEO, her voice cracking. "I was wrong, Leo. I made a mistake. I realize now that I can't live without you. Please come back. I'll give you more. Anything you want, I can give it to you." Her words were a stone tossed into the still lake of my heart, causing a faint ripple. I looked at her, then down at Selena, who was clutching my shirt, her body tense. I could feel the charm inside me stir, a low hum of warning. If I showed even a hint of wavering, it would unleash its punishment. But this time, my decision wasn't driven by fear. I looked directly at Victoria and said, clearly and deliberately, "I'm sorry, Victoria. I can't leave her now either." The words were as much for me as they were for her. I felt Selena flinch in my arms. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with disbelief and shining with unshed tears. Victoria was utterly defeated. She stared at us, her lips moving silently. But in the end, she said nothing. She just turned and walked away, a picture of devastation. The three-way showdown was over, ended by my clear choice. After Victoria left, a heavy silence fell over the living room. Selena pulled away from me, taking a step back, her expression complicated. "Did you mean what you just said?" she asked, her voice quiet and uncertain. Or were you just saying it because you were afraid of the charm? She was so careful with her question, her beautiful eyes filled with a vulnerability and hope she probably didn't even realize was there. This fearless, rule-breaking force of nature suddenly looked like a little girl waiting for a final grade. Looking at her, a strange new emotion washed over me. Tenderness. I stepped forward and pulled her back into my arms, holding her tight. I lowered my head and whispered in her ear, in a voice only we could hear, finally answering her question. At first, it was surrender, then it was habit, and finally, it was love. Habit is a terrifying thing, Selena. And this feeling, it grew over time. It's real. Hearing my answer, the dam broke. She didn't scream or wail. She just clung to me, burying her face in my chest and weeping silently, like a child who had finally been comforted after being hurt. Her tears quickly soaked through my t-shirt. It was the first time I had ever seen her cry, not out of possessive rage or thwarted desire, but out of joy. She cried for a long time, until her body was trembling with hiccuping sobs. She lifted her tear-stained face to mine and suddenly asked a question. Leo, if one day the charm was broken, would you leave me? I stroked her soft hair. Instead of answering directly, I asked her a question of my own. Would you be willing to break it? She shook her head without a moment's hesitation, her voice thick with tears. I'm too scared. I can't risk it. What if you ran away? Leo, I can't lose you. Her obsession was still there, her madness unabated. But I no longer felt fear or disgust. I cupped her tear-streaked face in my hands, leaned down, and kissed her. This kiss was different. There was no coercion, no punishment, no teasing, no testing. There was only a bone-deep tenderness and a willing, total surrender. After a long moment, we broke apart. I whispered in her ear, giving her, and myself, a promise. Then let it be, forever. A year later, Selena burst into the kitchen where I was cooking, waving a piece of paper. Darling, darling. She was flushed with excitement, holding the thin sheet out to me like a trophy. Look, we're having a baby. She grabbed my hand, her voice a mix of nervousness and anticipation. Are you happy? I looked at the ultrasound photo, at the tiny, blurry shape of a new life, and my heart filled with an emotion I had never felt before. I set down the spatula, turned off the stove, and pulled her into a tight embrace. Happy? Of course I'm happy. From that day on, I became a full-time, stay-at-home dad-to-be. I spent my days researching pregnancy recipes, constantly coming up with new ways to keep her nourished. My father-in-law and grandfather-in-law were beyond impressed. Every time they came over, they'd joke, see, that charm was worth it. Brought a 5-star husband into the family. Selena's hormones were all over the place during the pregnancy, and she was often plagued by insecurity. She would wake up in the middle of the night, grab my arm, and ask again and again, Darling, do you still love me? You won't leave me and the baby, right? And time after time, I would hold her, kiss her forehead, and show her with my actions that I would always be there. At night, I would talk to her slightly swelling belly, my own form of prenatal education. Listen, little one, whatever you do, don't learn how to make charm from your mom. It's illegal, and it's a terrible thing to do to someone. Before I could finish, Selena would grab my ear and retort to her stomach. Don't listen to your daddy's nonsense. The charms are our family's greatest treasure. They're very useful. Besides, how else do you think you got such a handsome father? Your dad knows better than anyone. I'd yelp in pain, and the whole family would dissolve into laughter. Just before our daughter was born, a package arrived from her grandmother. Inside was a beautiful, handmade set of silver jewelry and a traditional folk costume for the baby. Tucked inside the package was a small, embroidered pouch. Grandma told me on the phone that it was the antidote for the heart-binding charm. She was leaving the decision to me. When you use it, Leo, it is up to you. That evening, I sat by the fireplace, the small pouch in my hand. I looked at it, then over at Selena, sleeping soundly in our bed, her belly round and full. She looked so peaceful, a faint, sweet smile on her lips. Without any hesitation, I tossed the pouch into the roaring fire. The flames consumed it in an instant. I didn't need an antidote, because she and our child were the charm I had willingly accepted for a lifetime. Our daughter was born healthy and beautiful. We nicknamed her Luna. Looking at this tiny human, a perfect blend of me and Selena, my heart was completely overwhelmed with a happiness I never knew was possible. Years later, Luna grew up. She inherited all of Selena's mischievous spirit and my good looks. Our life as a family of 3 was a chaotic, joyful whirlwind. Occasionally, I'd see news about Victoria Sterling in the business section. She was still a titan of industry, a CEO who commanded respect and fear. But I heard she never married. We were worlds apart now. My place in this family was very clear. I was the #1 loyal servant to Queen Selena and Princess Luna, and I wouldn't have it any other way. My greatest joy was cooking for my 2 girls. One day, Luna was hugging Selena's neck and asked curiously, "Mommy, what's a charm? I want to learn, so I can find a husband as handsome as Daddy one day." Hearing this, I immediately scooped my daughter up and began my scare tactics education. "Luna, listen to Daddy. Using charms is wrong. It turns people into whipped husbands. See? I'm the perfect example. You must never, ever learn." Before I could finish, Selena had snatched Luna back, planting her hands on her hips and grabbing my ear to provide a live demonstration for our daughter. "Baby, don't listen to your daddy's nonsense. The charm is our family's secret to happiness. It's the most useful thing in the world. How else do you think you got such a handsome dad?" She shot a defiant look at me, still wincing as she twisted my ear. "Your daddy is just being stubborn. Deep down, he loves it." Luna nodded, not quite understanding, then copied her mother, reaching out with her tiny hand to pinch my other ear. "Daddy's bad. Mommy's right." I was on the verge of tears, feeling the full weight of my complete and utter lack of authority in this house. Selena let go, planted a loud kiss on my cheek, and pushed a spatula into my hand. "All right, stop being so dramatic. Go make dinner. The princess and I are hungry." I sighed in mock defeat, but my face broke into a fond smile I couldn't hide. I turned and walked toward the kitchen. The end.